Tonight, stay away from corruption. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, warns newly appointed judges of Superior Courts, insisting they must be fair and firm in spite of whose ox is God. Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State takes a swipe at the Nigerian Bar Association, describes their posture towards social change and defense of the judiciary as lackluster. 2 suspects arraigned over the killing of Deborah Samuel, a student of Shehu Shagari College of Education, arraigned before a chief magistrate court in Sokoto. And President Muhammadu Buhari and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami seek judicial interpretation of the contentious Section 8412 of the Electoral Act at the Supreme Court.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria's headline inflation rate hits 8-month high of 16.82% in April amid continuous rise in food prices and other commodities.
On sports news tonight, Super Falcons head coach Randy Wardrum invites 32 players for training camp in Morocco as the 9-time African champions intensify preparations for the Women's African Cup of Nations holding in July.
And from the nation's capital, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, calls on all political parties to be fair to women seeking elective offices by ensuring a level playing ground.
And in international news from London, US authorities say the man suspected of shooting dead 10 people in New York deliberately chose a black population to commit his crime.
Stay away from corruption. That's the riot act to the newly appointed judicial officers in the country by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, warning them that it can no longer be business as usual. Justice Muhammad also asked them to uphold the tenets of the profession and be impartial in the course of discharging their duties. He gave the warning at the opening of the 2022 induction course for the judicial officers of Superior Courts in Abuja.
Gathered in this auditorium are judicial officers and the newly appointed judges of superior courts across the country for their induction in line with the statutory mandate as enshrined in Section 3 of the National Judicial Institute Act. Leading the conversation, the Chief Justice of Nigeria informs the new judges that the judiciary has no place for corruption, warning that anybody caught in the web of corruption would be severely dealt with.
You are not aware or you are in a quandary. Permit me to remind you that corruption has no place in the judiciary. As such, you are expected to display absolute integrity and be reminded or be committed to your adjudicatory duties, thereby shying away from anything that might dent your integrity.
Justice Muhammad advises them to embrace ICT skills for easier and faster access to daily recordings of their court proceedings.
It is, however, pertinent to note that we must all move with the tide, taking into consideration that the world as a global village has embraced ICT, and we cannot afford to be left behind.
The administrator of the National Judicial Institute reminds the participants of the challenges ahead of them, advising them to imbibe judicial values.
As ministers in the Temple of Justice, the need for you to imbibe judicial values cannot be overemphasized. Your job as judicial officer is quite taxing and demanding. It involves long working hours. As such, it behoves on you to strike a balance in handling your day-to-day activities on the bench and other affairs that will compete for your time and attention.
As the newly appointed judicial officers settle down into their new roles as judges, many Nigerians will be watching them keenly to observe their methods of dispensing justice especially during this period when the country is getting set for the 2023 general elections.
Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State is calling on the Nigerian Bar Association to show more courage in confronting anyone or group that exhibits tendencies considered detrimental to the rule of law. The outspoken governor maintains that the posture of lawyers should deter the government from actions that threaten judicial independence. He was speaking in Port Harcourt at the book presentation in honor of retired Justice Mary Odili, who retired as Justice of the Supreme Court after serving over 4 decades. An event attended by top judicial officers and governors of Abia, Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Benue, Enugu and Oyo states.
Top brass of the nation's judiciary, governors, other public officials and traditional rulers all here for the presentation of 5 books in honor of Justice Mary Odili on her retirement from the Supreme Court and celebration of her 70th birthday. Written by different authors, the book highlights her contributions in advancing the cause of justice in the country.
The book will surely be helpful to judicial officers, legal practitioners, law teachers, law students, amongst others.
Speaker after speaker described Justice Mary Odili as friendly but firm and fair.
When my Lord presides in court, she's efficient, she's firm, she's fair, and she's also friendly. She makes everybody relaxed.
When you humble yourself, you will be exalted. So I'm not surprised to see you attain the apex of your career in the legal profession and in the judiciary, and also attending 70th birthday.
The host governor, however, has a strong message for the judiciary, especially members of the bar.
The NBA lackluster approach to social change is more of a disservice to the nation and exposes it to contempt as lawyers' body that stands for nothing noble. It must take a cue from the activist posture of the Pakistan Lawyers Association and get transformed into formidably united social force for justice.
For the celebrant, she feels nothing but gratitude to have retired with no worries about her decisions on the bench.
Whatever I do, if God calls me that same day or immediately after the delivery of the judgment, and I am asked questions, I can answer. I am very happy that some of my judgments have been captured in print. And as I flipped through the judgments of those big judges and magistrates of the old Bender state, my own judgments are now in the open for everyone to look at.
The books are unveiled by a group of 7 visiting governors led by the host, Nyesom Wike, with a sum of 200 million naira. Retired Justice Mary Odili is the wife of the former governor of Rivers State, Dr. Peter Odili, who was also present at the event with their children, among whom are 2 daughters, already following in the footsteps of their mothers, serving as judges at the FCT and the Rivers State High Courts.
President Muhammadu Buhari and the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, have filed a suit at the Supreme Court seeking an interpretation of Section 8412 of the Electoral Amendment Act 2022. In the suit filed on April 29th, they listed the National Assembly as the sole defendant. The President and Mr. Malami are seeking an order of the Apex Court to strike out the section of the Electoral Act, which they argue is inconsistent with the nation's constitution. According to the court document, the plaintiffs contend that the Section 8412 of the Electoral Act 2022 is inconsistent with the provisions of Sections 42, 65, 66 and 10 other sections of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, as well as Article 2 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The plaintiffs also contend that the Constitution already provides qualification and disqualification for the offices of the President and the Vice President, Governor and Deputy Governor, Senate and House of Representatives, House of Assembly, Ministers, Commissioners and Special Advisors. The National Assembly is countering the suit and has asked the Supreme Court to strike out the suit instituted by President Buhari. The National Assembly, in its counter-affidavit filed by its lawyer, Kayode Ajulo, says the Supreme Court cannot be invoked to amend the provision of any law validity made by lawmakers in the exercise of their legislative powers as granted by the Constitution. It argued that the 1999 Constitution as amended gave the National Assembly the power to make laws for good governance in Nigeria. Staying with the controversial Electoral Act, the Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed May 24 for definite hearing in a suit by the People's Democratic Party on Section 84, 11 and 12 of the Electoral Act 2022 instituted against President Muhammadu Buhari. Justice Inyang Eden Ekwo fixed the date to enable the President and the PDP address the court on the effect of the Court of Appeal judgment in Abuja, which declared a contentious Section 8412 as unconstitutional, null and void. The judge on his own raised the issue on the ground that the PDP's suit borders on the same section of the law in which a higher court had made pronouncement that would bind on lower court. In their response, counsel to PDP and counsel to President Buhari and the AGF disagreed on whether or not there is a difference between the Mwahia suit and that of the PDP. The judge subsequently held that all parties in matter shall address him on the next adjourned date on whether to abide by the Court of Appeal decision or proceed with the one before him.
The difference between the two is that though it deals with the same section, the Court of Appeal found that Chief Edede, who went to the Umuahia Federal High Court, had no local standard. Now, when the court rules that there is no local standard, what it's saying is that the case has no foundation. And since the case has no foundation, he struck it out. Now, what is the effect of that? Now, the court now said, look, I'm not the final court. There are other issues, two other issues. Whether Section 8412 is in conflict with some of the provisions of qualification in the Constitution, 66, 177, 182. And the Court of Appeal said there's a difference between a political appointee and a public officer. And so the two do not collide. So there is no conflict. In my view, that settles the matter. In addressing His Lordship here, we told him that you are not bound by dead issues, only live issues. And since there's no live issue about fundamental rights before you, you can proceed with this case.
Police have arraigned two suspects, Bilyaminu Aliu and Aminu Hunkuchi, before a chief magistrate court in Sokoto over the unrest that led to the death of a 200-level student of Shehu Shagari College of Education, Deborah Samuel. The prosecuting officer says the suspects, who are also students of the same school, were accused of participating in disturbance that led to Deborah's death on May 12, 2022. The accused persons pleaded not guilty when the charges were read to them. The defense counsel, Professor Mansur Ibrahim, therefore applied for their bail on liberal terms, citing extant laws. The trial judge reserved that ruling on bail application and ordered the accused to be remanded in correctional custody. Meanwhile, the Sokoto state government has ordered the relaxation of the 24-hour curfew in force in Sokoto metropolis. The revised curfew will now be from dusk to dawn in Sokoto township to allow people to go about their legitimate business. In part two, after the break, Operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission arrest the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmed Idris, in connection with alleged diversion of funds and money laundering activities to the tune of 80 billion naira. That's in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us, to watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Stay away from corruption. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, warns newly appointed judges of Superior Courts, insisting they must be fair and firm in spite of whose ox is gored. Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State takes a swipe at the Nigerian Bar Association, describes their posture towards social change and defense of the judiciary as lackluster. EFCC arrests Accountant General of the Federation over alleged diversion of funds and money laundering. And President Muhammadu Buhari and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami seek judicial interpretation of the contentious Section 8412 of the Electoral Act at the Supreme Court. Well, Sweden confirms it will apply for NATO membership in a historic move that comes as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A Lagos High Court sitting at the Tafawa Balewa Square has adjourned till May 23rd the continuation of trial of an undergraduate, Chidinma Ojukwu, charged with the murder of the Chief Executive Officer of Super TV, Mr. Usifo Ataga. Chidinma and one Adidakpo Quadri are standing trial alongside a third defendant, Chidinma's sister, Choma Egbuchu, on a 9-count charge bordering on conspiracy, murder, forgery, stealing and being in possession of stolen property. They had all pleaded not guilty. At the proceedings today, the new counsel for the third defendant, Ngozi Akandu, again asked the court to vacate the trial dates already fixed. Akandu told the court that he was yet to receive the proof of evidence from the prosecution counsel and the office of the public defender. The former counsel for the third defendant, that is, counsel for Ojukwu, Mr. Onwuka Ebu, had no objections to the application. He added that the proof of evidence was very voluminous, as it had 400 pages. The Deputy Director for Public Prosecutions, Adenike Uluwafemi, however, raised objections to the application. She accused the third defendant's counsel of not going to the OPD to collect the documents as scheduled. She also informed the court that the prosecution witness was available and ready to proceed. Justice Yetunde Adesoya, in a short ruling, vacated today's date, May 16, and adjourned until May 23rd for continuation of trial. Operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, have arrested the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmed Idris, in connection with alleged diversion of funds and money laundering activities to the tune of 80 billion naira. The EFCC says its verified intelligence showed that the Accountant General raked off the funds through bogus consultancies and other illegal activities using proxies, family members and close associates. The funds were allegedly laundered through real estate investments in Kano and Abuja. According to the Commission, Mr. Idris was arrested after failing to honor an invitation by the EFCC. Our students of the University of Benin have reiterated their resolve to keep pressure on the government to ensure the lingering crisis between ASU and the federal government is settled so they can go back to class. They made this known today when they took their protest to the Federal Secretariat in Benin City, asking the director to take their message to the federal government. In his response, the government official assured the students of his support for their cause and determined to take their message to the appropriate authorities.
No election. No election. No election.
Handing over now to Terry in Abuja, who has more on the day's electoral matters. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Marachi, you're absolutely right. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is asking political parties to provide a level playing field for female aspirants contesting in the 2023 general elections. At a one-day workshop for leaders of political parties on women participation in primaries, organized by the International Republican Institute in collaboration with INEC, the National Commissioner and Chairman, Outreach and Partnership Committee of INEC says parties must avoid the temptation of stereotyping women. Our correspondent, Empress Simon, reports.
With less than 2 weeks to the presidential primaries of most political parties ahead of the 2023 election, at least 7 female aspirants have so far indicated interest to contest for the position of President of Nigeria. And this workshop, organized by the International Republican Institute in collaboration with INEC, is aimed at strengthening the capacity of women, while at the same time providing an opportunity to engage party leaders ahead of their primaries. The biggest challenge for female politicians in Nigeria is being able to clinch their party's ticket during primary elections, when the competition is usually tough, with factors such as the use of money sometimes influencing the process. But the INEC National Commissioner and Chairman Outreach and Partnership Committee calls on political parties to ensure inclusiveness, just as the chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council calls for support for women contesting for elective positions.
Parties should address stereotypes and biases on unhealthy practices of holding meetings at odd times, monetization of internal party politics, violence, and threats to personal safety and security of women.
Most of you who are running for the #1 office in this country, believe you me, we are proud of you. Please go ahead. You can make it. Power belongs to God.
For some of the aspirants here, they are determined to take the bull by the horns and change the course of history.
This is the time for people not to look at personal interests or financial benefits, but to put Nigeria first.
The time for the women is now. I am asking all the women, all the youths, all the men that really support women to give us this backing.
With 18 days left to round off all party primaries, the number of women aspiring for various offices in the 2023 general elections remains significantly low compared to that of the male aspirants. But organizers of this workshop hope the few women who are aspiring will be given a chance to make their own mark in the political landscape of Nigeria. Empress Simon, Channels Television News.
Following President Muhammadu Buhari's directive on May 11 asking members of his cabinet seeking elective positions to resign, 4 ministers have so far aborted their political ambitions and indicated willingness to remain as members of the president's cabinet. They are the Ministers of Labour and Productivity, Chris Ngige, Women Affairs, Pauline Talon, Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, and that of State for Petroleum, Timipre Silva. However, the Senior Special Assistant to the Minister, Mr. Horatius Egwa, affirms that the Minister of State for Petroleum, Mr. Timipre Silva, has returned to work and intends to continue as usual. There is, however, uncertainty as to whether or not the President would reabsorb them into the Cabinet after bidding them farewell in the valedictory session held on Friday. The Minister of Information and Culture is expected to brief the media tomorrow, Tuesday, May 17. An APC presidential aspirant, Mr. Chibike Amechi, says the federal government is not relenting in securing the safe release of the remaining passengers of the Abuja-Kaduna-bound train abducted on March 28, 2022. Mr. Amechi stated this while addressing Kaduna delegates of the APC during his consultation visits to them to canvass their votes in the party's forthcoming presidential primary elections. He says he will tackle insecurity if elected in 2023.
Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, top political office holders in Kaduna State and delegates of the party play host to the APC presidential aspirant Chibike Amechi at the Yaradua Conference Hall in the state capital. Chairman of the APC in Kaduna State says party members are delighted to receive Mr. Amechi, whom he refers to as a friend of the state.
You have these impeccable credentials, which is therefore no surprise that you have indicated to aspire for the APC nomination for the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are truly happy to welcome you ahead of the presidential primaries.
Again, insecurity tops the discussions as the presidential hopeful apologizes for the unfortunate incident of the abduction of train passengers along the Abuja-Kaduna rail line. He also promises the gathering that he will tackle insecurity by investing in agriculture and service industry if elected as president.
Those who have been kidnapped, the federal government is doing quite a lot to get them released. But security is not discussed in the public glare. Security is done privately and quietly until these people are released. You may not hear much. I join those parents who are not happy to request that they be calm until the government is able to get those people who are in captivity released.
In his address, Governor Nasir El-Rufai puts a poser to the audience if they're in support of the South producing the next president of Nigeria, to which he got a positive response.
So I want to ask you a question. Are we in Kaduna State committed as a matter of fairness and justice to presidency of Nigeria going to the South? Are we committed to that?
The APC delegates in Kaduna State, like many others across the country, are spoiled for choice on the number of aspirants vying for the presidency under the party and will make their decision during the presidential primaries.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, one of the country's leading telecommunications companies, Airtel Nigeria, continues to reach out to the vulnerable in the society with life-changing initiatives. Join us again.
Welcome back to the news at 10. The Lagos State Police Command has confirmed that one of the 4 suspects in custody over the lynching of a sound engineer, David Imo, in Lekki area of Lagos is a prime suspect. A spokesman of the command, Benjamin Hundeyin, told Channels Television today that preliminary investigation has revealed the suspect is the mastermind behind the unholy act. Although he avoided mentioning the identity of the suspects, Mr. Hundeyin asked that all suspects will have their day in court as soon as investigations are concluded. The victim, David Sunday Imo, was killed by irate youth on Thursday when a fight ensued between a motorcycle rider and his passengers in the Oniru area of the state. The MTN Foundation, the corporate social responsibility arm of MTN, is making its impact felt with the donation of medical equipment to the Federal Teaching Hospital in the state. The foundation says the gesture falls within its objectives of enhancing public trust, caring for families, local communities, and society as a whole.
Of the Chairman Medical Advisory Committee.
Healthcare delivery in Gombe State is receiving a facelift, and these people are here to witness the delivery of medical facilities to the Federal Teaching Hospital. Speeches from MTN Foundation and the Ministry of Health kick off proceedings.
It is important that the hospital imbibes a maintenance culture to ensure that the donated equipment lasts long. I charge those members of staff that will handle the equipment we are commissioning today to always readily put the patients first in their conduct to enable them benefit maximally from your professional knowledge.
At MTN, we're driven by our core belief that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern, connected life. And when we talk about a modern connected life, it's beyond the data and the voice and the services that we give. Because we believe that the success of our business is tied to the well-being of the communities that we operate in.
While praying to Almighty Allah to make the intervention beneficial to humanity.
The tape cutting ceremony is then followed by a tour of the facility. The Deputy Governor of Gombe State relates the well wishes of the Governor, Muhammadu Inuwa Yahaya, appreciating the gesture by MTN Foundation.
We really appreciate MTN and every other institution and individual that could have contributed to ensuring that health is provided to the best of our ability. We are not yet there. We are far behind. But at least with these contributions, we will perhaps reach the promised land.
The minister encourages other companies to emulate MTN Foundation for the sake of the people.
On behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, particularly my principal, President Muhammadu Buhari, is to commend the effort of MTN Foundation for providing this CSR, and also to urge other companies operating in Nigeria to do more for our citizens.
MTN Foundation has shown a large amount of consideration for the rural communities with this project, an important attribute of corporate social responsibility.
Here in Lagos, telecoms giant Airtel Nigeria has launched the Season 6 of its corporate social initiative, Airtel Touching Lives. During the event, to officially premiere the latest edition, the company acknowledged the successes recorded from previous editions. It, however, says there is a lot more work to be done. It says it's in the need for another season.
It's a special event to formally premiere the 6th edition of the Airtel Touching Lives. The Airtel Touching Lives is a corporate philanthropy initiative of Airtel Nigeria, created to offer relief and hope to the underprivileged, and also inspire the strong and the wealthy to support the vulnerable in the society. For the last 5 seasons, the success stories speak for itself.
In Season 5, we provided an ultra-modern public water system for a large community in Aja called the Ilaje community. In the same season, we also built a modern ICT center for a large community in Ogun State, providing them with stable power supply, desktop computer, furniture, workstations, and robust internet facilities. In Season 4, we provided relief for the Aina family who lost 3 of their children in a devastating inferno that destroyed everything they had. We responded by building them a house and providing them all the support to start life anew.
And for the 6th edition, what should we expect?
In Season 6, Airtel Nigeria has helped to rebuild a dream, a life, a hospital. We help children rebuild their confidence, get an education. And we tested millions of people for COVID. We turned tears of sadness into joy.
To continue to touch as much lives as possible, Airtel realizes the need to bring more hands on board for the next phase. The company has decided to collaborate with other corporate organizations. Some of the dignitaries here are full of commendation for what Airtel has achieved with this project over the years.
I can only say to Airtel, thank you for taking a bit of the burden. Thank you for bringing a smile to the faces of ordinary Nigerians.
A big congratulations to Airtel, led by its capable Group CEO, Mr. Segun Ogunsoya, for another year of impact, another season of transforming the lives of the less privileged.
Sustain the program remains the watchword of Airtel Nigeria, as the company says it remains committed to promoting the culture of giving.
Time for more business news. Here's Anne Wawodo.
Thank you, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin with Nigeria's headline inflation rate, which climbed further to 16.82% year-on-year last month. And that's the highest level since it rose to 16.63% in September 2021. According to the latest data released today by the National Bureau of Statistics, the latest increase is 0.9 points higher than the 15.92% inflation rate recorded in March this year. Further analysis of the NBS report shows that core inflation number, which excludes the price of volatile agricultural produce, rose to 14.18% last month. The composite food index rose to 18.37%. Urban inflation jumped to 17.35%, while rural inflation increased to 16.23%. The NBS has attributed the sustained rise in the country's inflationary pressure to a hike in global energy and food prices, which started since February due to the Russia-Ukraine war. And over to the domestic stock markets, where trading activities started the week on a negative note. Profit-taking for MTN Nigeria, Lafarge and 18 other decliners halted the winning streak that has dominated the previous weeks. John Mekwa has the details.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. Well, Nigeria's equities shed 83 billion naira at the close of trade today. After about 5 weeks of positive trade, the all-share index was down 0.29%, bringing the bear out. So that all-share index was about 52,000 level, though very close to that 53 that it got to last week, while the market cap is still within that 28 trillion naira. The most active transactions today were on TransCore, about 89 million, while JEs and Access Corp, both from the financial services, followed. Mixed sentiment at the sectoral performance today. Consumer and industrial goods were down over 0.5% each, while oil and gas gained about that same percentage. Owando most likely drove this with a 26 kobo gain. Market mover MTN Nigeria seems to have largely determined the course of the market today, 0.61%. That's about 1 naira 60 kobo was what it shed off its share price. So is it okay to say that, is this a pullback for a comeback or just a window for bargain hunting? We'll find out tomorrow. That's a stock market report. I'm John Mekwa.
Well, that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Amarachi.
Thanks, Anne. Coming up on the news at 10, Sweden confirms they will apply for NATO membership in a historic move that comes as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We'll have details when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. And Simon Pusey has the day's foreign news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. US authorities say the man suspected of shooting dead 10 people at a supermarket in New York deliberately sought a site with a high black population. Police say the suspect, Peyton Gendron, drove more than 320 kilometers to carry out the attack. It is being investigated as an act of racially motivated violent extremism.
What started out as a beautiful day...
Buffalo's mayor, Byron Brown, said the suspect arrived intending to take as many black lives as possible. A 180-page document, seemingly authored by Mr. Gendron, has emerged in which he describes himself as a fascist and a white supremacist. Questions are being asked about how he was able to carry out the attack when concerns had already been raised.
We have suffered a mass shooting with multiple casualties and several people injured.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has once again said that Russia would respond if NATO began to bolster the military infrastructure of Sweden and Finland. It comes as he met his Tajikistan counterpart ahead of the annual summit of the Collective Security Treaty Organization in Moscow. The military alliance, that is sometimes called Moscow's answer to NATO, draws on the armed forces from Russia, Belarus, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. It comes days after Sweden and Finland confirmed they will apply for NATO membership in a historic shift. Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops defending the northern city of Kharkiv have reportedly reached the state border with Russia after driving opposition forces away from its second largest city. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un has lambasted health officials and ordered the army to help distribute medicine as a wave of COVID cases sweeps through the country. State media said more than 1 million people have now been sickened by what Pyongyang is calling a fever. Some 50 people have died, but it's unclear how many of those suspected cases tested positive for COVID. North Korea has only limited testing capacity, so few cases are confirmed. Somalia's former leader Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has been elected president after a final vote that was only open to the country's MPs. He defeated the current president, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, who has been in office since 2017. The ballot was limited to Somalia's 328 MPs due to security concerns over holding a wider election. Mr. Mohammed received 214 votes, defeating Mr. Farmajo, who won 110 votes. Yemen's national airline operated its first commercial flight in years from the capital Sana'a, raising hopes for a renewal of a United Nations brokered truce in the 7-year-old conflict. Water cannons sprayed Sana'a airport's runway as an airplane of the national carrier, Yemeni Air, landed against a backdrop of destroyed buildings surrounding the airfield. Dozens of Yemenis, including patients who had waited years for medical treatment, went through security checks in the airport's terminal, which has been deserted since 2015. McDonald's has said it will permanently leave Russia after 30 years and has started to sell its restaurants there. The fast food giant said it made the decision because of the humanitarian crisis and unpredictable operating environment caused by the Ukraine war. The chain opened in Moscow in 1990 as the Soviet Union was opening its economy to Western brands. In March, McDonald's temporarily closed its 850 restaurants in the country. The company said it was now pursuing the sale of all of its restaurants in Russia to a local buyer. Stargazers have been treated overnight to an unusual sight known as a super blood moon. Shortly after 3:30 a.m. UK time, the Earth's orbit meant that for several minutes the planet was positioned directly between the Sun and the Moon. In that time, the Moon fell completely into the Earth's shadow, temporarily turning it to a dusky shade of dark red. The lunar eclipse coincided with a supermoon, which is when the Moon is at its closest point to Earth in its orbit, making it appear larger than usual. The Queen has attended the final night of an equestrian extravaganza show to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee. The 96-year-old was met with a standing ovation as she arrived in the Castle Arena at the Royal Windsor Horse Show.
Each year, the King's Troop fires 4 royal salutes to honor members of the royal family.
Celebrities including Tom Cruise, Helen Mirren and Katherine Jenkins appeared in the open-air celebration. It has been running since Thursday night and is the beginning of celebrations to mark the Queen's 70-year reign. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Welcome to Sports News. Arsenal's hope of qualifying for next season's Champions League are now out of their hands after they slumped to a 2-0 defeat to an inspired Newcastle at St. James Park. The Gunners went into the game knowing a win combined with another 3 points at home to Everton on the Premier League's final day on Sunday would have guaranteed their return to the competition for the first time since the 2016 and 2017 season. Super Falcons head coach Randy Wardrum has invited 32 players to camp as the reigning women's African champions get set for a 2-week training camp in Morocco ahead of the Women's African Cup of Nations holding in that country from July the 2nd through the 23rd. The training camp will start on June the 18th. The Super Falcons are drawn in Group C with South Africa's Banyana, Botswana and Burundi. That's Sports News. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. Operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission have arrested the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmed Idris, in connection with alleged diversion of funds and money laundering activities to the tune of 80 billion naira. Telecoms giant Airtel Nigeria has launched the 6th season of its corporate social initiative, Airtel Touching Lives in Lagos, while acknowledging the successes recorded from the previous editions. And the MTN Foundation, the corporate social responsibility arm of MTN, has donated medical equipment to the Federal Teaching Hospital in Gombe State. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.